Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rockstar Path Show. I am your co-host, John Kyle, and I'm a music artist. My website is johnkyle.com. We're broadcasting from rockstarpath.com, which is a site where we help artists navigate this new world. And that's what this show is all about, is about being a successful artist. My co-host, Paul Kyle, is an artist as well. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great, John. And I'm an artist. I work and teach in Southern California, and I work in video art and teach filmmaking. And I'm looking forward to the show tonight, John. And clearly, me and John we're brothers, so we try to add that sort of insight into the show also. And yeah, the show's also about being a successful artist today, but it's also, about trying to be a successful person while pursuing your creative goals.
That's exactly right. And it may be because we're brothers, but we are kindred spirits. We are very, creative and, what do you want to say? Sensitive, I guess, and really into personal development, enlightenment, and art, and doing good in the world. Having our art and our lives mean something. And so tonight we are going to have Paul is going to have an art and theory session here to start us off. And then after that, we're going to go into a discussion about the friction and balance between art, creativity, and business, the business side of things that you've got to do, the marketing, the promotion, the networking, the stuff that doesn't quite feel like it's your art, but it's something that we do in our lives, and we're going to discuss that aspect of being an artist.
Cool. Well, that sounds great, John. I look forward to both of these discussions.
Yeah. So, Paul, what do you have for our art and theory corner, our art and theory nugget?
Our art and theory nugget tonight is about popular art and democracy. I think that one thing that if you've been listening to our podcasts is that we talk about pop art, or especially popular music, and along with some more less mainstream artists, where there might be visual artists that not everyone has heard of, but everyone's heard of Katy Perry, and so I'd like to
Super Bowl, then
that's right,
which is everybody. So yeah,
or if you're a teenage girl, and
that's right.
So I just wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about what the role of popular art is in our culture, and let's have a little bit of discussion on it. Earlier today, I actually was reading a book, and it was a book by Mark Rothko, the famous abstract expressionist painter from who died, I think, in the 70s, but he was very prolific, and he did these field paintings where it was like color fields, large colors of like red and then green in the bottom, but they're very large, and I never really got him until I went to an exhibition in Washington, D.C., a retrospective of his work, and it had they were the size of a human body. They were very human scaled. And so when I went up to it, you had a very visceral experience with it. It's like you felt it. And so it was something that, like, when I had seen just pictures in a book or a magazine or whatever, I didn't get the sense of the painting at all. It was just sort of blobs of color. But then when I saw it in person, they were really large, beautiful, and almost spiritual type painting. So I'm just putting that out, that he's an artist that's very influential to me.
What was his name again?
Mark Rothko, Rothko.
And that's M-A-R-K?
Yeah.
R-O-T-H-C-O?
K-O.
K-O. Oh, okay. Mark Rothko. Okay, got it.
Anyway, so I was just skimming through this book. I wasn't sitting down and reading it studiously, but I'd like to read this quote. The whole notion that art should be a popular medium is particularly attractive to a democratic society. This society holds rightfully the faith that education can bring to many those pleasures of the mind which have in previous times been the exclusive pleasures of the privileged. It envisions the constant extension of the base in numbers of those who, through increased facilities for the seeing and practice and discussion of art, will actively and generally be moved by the creations of their contemporaries. The desire that art function in this way has a sentimental root in our particular democratic myths. We all love the newsboy who became head of his corporation, or the rail splitter who became president. And extending this notion, we are inclined to view with glowing love the musician who found his way to Carnegie Hall after years of playing, in speakeasies, or the artist who wins a place in the velvet-walled galleries after years of cartooning for a newspaper. The Cinderella story has for us a great fascination. What we have in these myths is the symbolic expression of the opportunity principle of democracy, that here, through the free play of opportunity, the very humblest beginnings are not a preclusion to the most sublime achievements. And then he goes on, and I just want to finish this, to talk about the difference between like popular art, maybe considered a low art or more base art versus high art, right? And that one is, like whether something is popular or unpopular, and what that means. And he basically says, in conclusion, we wish to say that a great work of art might indeed be popular, just as it might be unpopular, and that the unpopularity should no more be an index of its worth than an index of its lack of it. So he's basically saying that, art exists whether it's popular or unpopular. It's not the worth of the art isn't dependent on whether it's popular or unpopular. There's another index that you can use.
I see. And I heard in that quote something about, it's the Horatio Alger story.
Exactly.
The luck and pluck thing. And I wasn't sure how, was he kind of saying that, like, as the in the democratic idea, or the way, the populist way, that we can appreciate each other's art, but we're also, you're saying, or he was saying, we're in love with that idea of the Cinderella story,
right? The
person that, and how did that connect? I wasn't quite sure. Like, is he making kind of a critique of that, or is he saying that's...
No, he's saying that that's sort of one of the particular inherent qualities of our culture. That's, I think he's actually championing it.
I see.
I think that he's saying that that because of that the archetype of the newsboy becoming the CEO, or the artist toiling away in small clubs or venues and then playing at then getting really popular. It's almost like what we're doing. We talk about art. We're talking about ourselves. We talk about these different artists who make it big. And that's a particularly, we're particularly fascinated by it, or it's a particularly easy way for us to talk about it because of our democratic society. And
I see.
And that we, that's the way we talk about it. It's going to lead into what we're talking about later in terms of the business side of art, and how making it big and doing the self-promotion aspects of it is also a part of sort of like the democratic capitalistic, the particular American strain of art making. And then basically I just wanted to throw in that last part to sort of, again, say he's not making a judgment about the, sure, that's one way of measuring art, whether it's popular or unpopular, but there's many other ways, and probably the ultimate value of the work is not related to that at all.
Yes, that's great. That opens up a lens on exactly what like you said. I believe in that dream. That's that, and the idea of, this goes into the marketing a bit, but like Seth Godin, and his ideas about, and this is really mainstream now, but it's find find your audience, find your niche, find those 1,000 true fans. So it's a wide. Somebody's honking all around here. What did the Huskies win tonight?
Did the Mud Skippers win?
I think the Mud Skippers won. It's Friday night. No, it isn't. It's Saturday night. Saturday Night Lights, man. All right. The idea of finding those 1,000 people that think your art is worthy, that you are awesome, that want to be your fan, instead of, like if I can find those 1,000 people, I'll be set. I don't need to find millions of people across the nation who all agree, and the university
Right.
professors and the that kind of thing to have, to have success. In fact, I would say a lot of the stuff that's really popular, I mean, people, and we're very generous minded people. Like, we can see the value in a lot of things, we discuss a lot of popular artists that some people dismiss and are snotty about or something, but that's not what we're about. We're about, like, wow, what is the value here? There must be some. Anyway, the idea that what's popular has no relationship about the value, I suppose.
Right. The ultimate worth. I mean, I think
the ultimate worth.
We could go into talking about what the ultimate worth of art is, and we have a bit, but it's, it's about making interhuman connectionness. It's about connections. It's about, helping us rise above and continue, like, progress forward in a spiritual way, maybe, or just, share the burden of living with others, and, express an inner dialogue outside, so that other people can, you can find other people that relate to it, or can vibe with it. And that the value of that is, just like you said, if 1,000 people like it, I mean, that's amazing.
Right.
And if 1 million people like it, that's, you got a tiger by the tail, for whatever reason.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that clearly that doesn't mean that art is any better, and I would say, what Rothko's saying is or any worse either. And so there is inherently, right? Just because of that, it doesn't mean it. There can be bands that are, I mean, as we can relate probably from our experiences being young, like REM, for example, you got into them when they were just a small college band in the 80s and weren't very popular. I mean, they were popular enough to play in college towns, right?
Yep. And when I saw them live, the first time, they played at the Star Palace, which is a tiny little club. And so they weren't popular enough yet to fill a theater yet. This was a small club. And so, you felt, but they had their 1,000 true fans. I mean, more than that at that point. I mean, they were popular. Exactly what you said. They were on college radio, so they could play college towns. But you kind of felt like you were part of a very small tribe.
Right. And then the fact that they, ended up getting, larger and larger until they finally had, some popular hit songs, that didn't take away the worth of them as artists. It just, it happened to be, something that happened. And I mean, maybe there is something to be said about whether if your art does hit a certain tipping point, like 1,000 people or something, what that number is, I'm not sure. That there is a certain universality to it, right? That there is some aspect to it that's more universal. That's something that you can sort of tag onto it. But
exactly.
But that still doesn't necessarily mean, like, the aesthetic qualities of it or the transcendental properties of it are there or not. So it's just kind of a way of measuring one index of measuring art.
That's fascinating. So that quote, if I wanted to look that up and find out more, that was by Mark Rothko.
By Mark Rothko in his book, The Artist's Reality: Philosophies of Art. And
okay,
I'll put it up on the screen there. Seems like I'm backwards. Anyway,
No, it looked. I can see it.
it's backwards on my screen. And the essay is, oh, I don't know which essay it's in right now. But yeah, so I felt that would be a good launching point. It's in an essay about Indigenous art, actually. Entitled Indigenous Art, which I think is fascinating. I think it starts out sort of saying, you know, where does art work in a tribal culture, you know, versus a democratic culture.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I think that that's something that we can keep in mind. And as we talk about trying to market yourself as an artist, or the steps you need to take as, you know, the business side, to remember that, you know, the goal that we normally talk about is more about sort of surviving as an artist, making a living enough to take care of yourself and your responsibilities. And part of that is that Horatio Algier's dream of making it big. But that really that is not the measure of an artist.
No, I think the part of what I get from the Horatio Alger story too is the idea of perseverance is in there, and the fact that, you know, although these are very idealized stories, these Cinderella stories and the Horatio Alger stories and things like that, but, you know, one common thing going on there is that the person, the character, the subject, believes in themselves and believes in being authentic and true to themselves, and they don't give up in the face of whatever villainy comes at them, or obstacles and things like that. And as you and I both know, as enlightened beings, that's really all metaphor for what's in your mind. You know, I mean, in a way, it's like you've got these internal villains and internal critics, and, you know, a lot of it came from outside. You know, when you were a child, people told you were not worth anything, or you couldn't do this, or you couldn't do that. I mean, that happens to a lot of people, and, you know, happens to most of us in various ways, where we really aren't, you know, set out to think that you know, we can do what our dreams are. And I'm not going to go way into this, but the idea, you know, a lot of that is just like, I guess, a parent myself, I realize that, you know, you've got to tell a kid, like, hey, now, you know, be quiet. like they're singing, and you're like, hey, not right now, be quiet. Or you say, you know, you're constantly, like, with good intentions, people are telling you, you know, don't do this now. You got to follow these rules. You got to do this. And so, you know, right, you got to basically sort these things out as you become an adult and an integrated individual. You've got to sort these things out. And what I was getting back to the Horatio Alger thing, it's like, it's a little bit of a fantasy, or it's like an ideal world. Or Shirley Temple, you know, she's like, in those movies, she's, you know, already very confident, self-reliant, you know, everybody loves her because she's so true to herself. You know, Anne of Green Gables. You can see I have daughters, and so I watch a lot of these types of things.
Right.
But that's the idea. Is perseverance is important, and really kind of what is it? Suspension of disbelief, where you just got to believe in your art and yourself enough to go for it. And as you brought up in your segment there, the culture that we live in it's the culture we live in, and that we have to survive in and negotiate that.
Right. We have to negotiate, but always keep in mind that whether or not we make it a success financially or popularity wise, that's only one way of indexing the worth of art, and probably one of the least important ways.
Yes. And the in a way, that idea of you know, you only fail if you don't try. one way that I like me, I would feel really successful if I just released a song every month and created a song every month and did a decent recording of it and put it out there, and some people liked it, and maybe eventually I got enough people that liked it. One thing I notice is that a lot of other things on the, like, say, the business side and the marketing side and other things, I allow them to crowd out or to become priorities, of, so I actually don't create. And like I said, that would be my measure of success, really, is what can I be, I mean, I guess it's prolific is a word to say. Can I be really creative and putting things out there and ship it? And in one way, I feel like the idea of, because it's got to be out there to have value. It's got to be out there to, even short of whether everybody loves it or not, you've got to love it. But you've got to get it out of you. You got to do it. And so, one thing I wanted to talk about tonight was that subject was. There's a friction between your creativity and then going out and getting it in front of as many people as possible and running the business side of your art.
Right. So, I mean, how do you see that friction? Do you think, well, why don't you explain how you see that friction?
All right. I think for me, the friction is part of it. Well, what I mean is like I have a lot of things to do that have nothing to do with the creative side. And I mean, even within my music, and that's fine. But I think a lot of people, I see this out there. Everyone feels like they're too busy and they are stressed, they don't have time, all that kind of thing. It's a real common, lament is not enough time, not enough money. I mean, it's
right.
Everybody's lament. And, as I search myself for what's really going on, that is truly all in your mind. I mean, there's some people that say we should strike the word busy from our vocabulary, because you are just doing what you're choosing to do at each moment. You're prioritizing. I spoke to, so my struggle basically is I always feel like I'm juggling things. I'm struggling with the juggle is one way
and so therefore, I mean, are you trying to say that, so as I'm sure a lot of people can relate, you're struggling with the different aspects of it, and you're not doing any of them well. Like you're not being able to spend enough time doing the creative aspects, and then you're not being able to spend enough time on the more business or practical aspects of promoting yourself and getting yourself out to a wider audience.
Yes. And I think it's almost, for me, and this is probably true for other people, the social media, for example, and they're almost like tempting. They're tempting to go. You get drawn into something where you're consuming more than you're creating, or you're planning. The whole idea of like planning and getting into analysis paralysis because you're preparing and researching, and that in a way is like like eating food that when you're not really hungry. It's like it's tempting to get involved in all these other things, and it's a little bit, at least for me, it's harder to get into the artistic creative mindset. I need to stop and let the stress, the tension go away, and put all these other distracting thoughts aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean I mean that's part of my little personal thing too, is like I tell myself I have to have everything cleared out so I can create, and that's really not true. You really need to just start creating.
Mm-hmm.
Grab that guitar, get in front of that piano, start writing something, and it'll just happen.
Right.
So yeah, so I had a Skype meeting with one of my mentors, and he's somebody I followed online for a while. Now we've become friends, and his name is Tommy Darker. And let me see where I kind of lost him here a second. I was going to show my screen here. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here real quick. And
Are you bringing up his website?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Can you see that?
Sure. So for those of you who aren't watching and are listening, this is Tommy Darker, spelled the way that it sounds, and he says, a music band is a business. Musicians are entrepreneurs. Learn about musicpreneurship.
Absolutely, and he's actually a visiting teacher at the University of Westminster. He moved from London to Manchester, and he's taught a Berkeley online class. So he's really involved in this idea, obviously, about musicpreneurship, the business of music. And I started chatting with him online a bit, and now we Skype, every month, and he's one of my mentors. And he, I told him last week we Skyped, and I told him what I just told the audience here and you, Paul, that for me, there's a conflict. And he said that, the conflict is only you're creating a conflict in your mind, because it actually is, it's integrated. It actually is integrated. He doesn't see, what's the word, a contrast or a separation between the music and the business of it. He thinks that if you are committing to being a full-time artist, you're a professional artist, and everything you do, maybe not just the songwriting, not just the producing the music, but also these other business sides of things, that's all part of your art. He sees that as, as you can see, he's very styled here. You can see he's got his logo, he's got his own personal branding here, and his style, and his selling points, almost his brand and his marketing. He's kind of got that all integrated in a way. And then I asked him point blank, I said, well, Tommy, like, I see all of your business side of things. I see but I don't see the music. Where's the music? And he said that he does music. In fact, his business allows him to have the basically some revenue that can support his music. And he says the way he looks at it, and to specifically answer my question, was he said that the English word priority, and maybe where it came from, it doesn't have a plural. There's no such word as priorities. He said it's priority. You have a priority, and that is what you're doing at this moment in time. That's what you're making your priority. And he said he was a musician struggling with exactly the same things. And then he took a couple months and made his business a priority and got all this stuff together, his ideas, his branding, where he was feeling inside himself that he wanted to help other people. And the idea of the musicpreneur really, that was his thing. That became his priority. And he said it took him about 9 months to get this sorted out, where he integrated these two ideas so he could spend some time with his priority on the business, and then go back and spend some time, his priority, on his music. And he does a different thing than what I realized than what I do with music. I'm kind of looking more like, okay, I'm going to be a music artist, and I'm going to be what's the word, a figure. I'm going to be you know, almost like a commodity, almost a brand. I'm going to be John Kyle, the music artist. You're going to watch my videos, see my CDs. My music's going to move you, and I'm trying to get out to like a wider audience. And he spends more time doing collaboration with other people, and so he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy. He loves conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
He loves being in a conversation, and I think that's true musically with him as well.
Right. So you're saying that, I mean, that's one way of doing things, but not everyone's going to fall into this music preneurship like he does, or take it to that level.
Oh, yes. Let me pull this.
And so, I mean, I think that that's really valid, and I think it's a really valid point, but it's not going to serve everybody, right? I mean, I think it's a great way to sort of understand that friction. But not everyone's going to get into the branding or have the technical skills or the social media skills even to be able to embrace all those different aspects.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I like that. That's part of my conversation with him there we go. Here we go. We're back again. Yeah. That was part of my conversation with Tommy was that I'm not like you in that aspect. I'm a kind of a solitary man, as Neil Diamond, famously sings about.
Right.
But what really, what did resonate with me and hit me was that idea of priority. I like that. I like, instead of feeling like I'm juggling priorities, I just make I just make a priority and spend some time on that priority and then move on to something else. And
Right.
That seems very basic to some people, but it's like what I said, when you make that your priority, you actually do it.
Yeah.
You don't get distracted on other things. If I say I'm going to sit down for the next few hours or, a day or two, whatever time you decide to set aside, you actually do work on that one thing.
Right. Well, I think that, I mean, it brings up, a story, or not a story, like when I was in college, a teacher of mine, a photography teacher of mine, one of my influential teachers, Neil Rappaport, talked about people were complaining about, they love to take pictures, but they hated going into the darkroom, right? They hated going and developing their negatives and even printing, because it was a very laborious process. You had to pour the chemicals, you had to make sure the temperature was right. It was a very, it was sort of it activated a different part of your brain that a lot of people did. They're like, no, I'm an artist. Why am I, why do I care that the stop bath is 72 degrees, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, no, I mean, that's like he was like that, you would get sick of, shooting pictures all the time. You need that sort of break, or at least for him,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
He was like, he lived in Vermont. So he was like, he would spend, all spring and summer some years, shooting and getting these, stacks and stacks of negatives, and then spend months in his darkroom in the winter, where it was warm and he could keep it at 72 degrees, and develop and then print. And printing is a little bit more of a creative process, and even developing is too, when you get to know like Ansel Adams' zone system and how you can manipulate the chemicals in there. But I could see that being very similar to that. It's sort of like, okay, there is the process of making music, but then there is the part of promoting, and we are all integrated beings. So it's like, where does the art end and start, and what informs one or the other? I mean, it's all tied up in the same package, which in this example we're talking about is John Kyle. And to neglect any part of that is not doing the best service for you.
I think that's great. That's a great, I mean, the integration and the other states of mind that you need to kind of you switch between but they're all still part of the same package. That's what, what you just said is really helpful. And what Tommy said is helpful because it made me think of the idea of like you said, integrating everything, and they're all different aspects of your art. And the trick is that I don't need to see them as competing with each other. I need to see them as different things that I need to make a priority at different times. And that's, all the way from, from recording music, producing music, and everything. And and the promotion and marketing side. And like I said, you can go and say, well, I'm just going to or put something on Facebook really fast, or put something on my blog really fast, or send an email out to my subscribers. And then you're down a rabbit hole. It's like, I think it's really helpful to say, today I'm going to create. And then the next day I'm going to spend time on some other things, or however people want to split up, however people would prefer to split their time chunks. I tend to be somebody, I think, is kind of like, I get on a railroad track, and then I'm on that track and I have real difficulty switching tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, a lot of the daily thing makes a bit of sense, because I can be in that mindset for that day. And then, whenever I do get some sleep, then that could be the reset for my next set of activities. And it's like anything else in life. I think you've got to intentionally plan, but don't spend too much time planning, but go ahead and list the things you want to be your priority. List the things you want to accomplish, and hone that down to say, okay, what are the activities I need to do?
Right. Exactly. And in building, being a successful artist, there are aspects of marketing, or for visual artists, there's marketing, but it's also going out and going to gallery openings, and working on your community, being a part of that community, and working on your portfolio, and setting up a web page, and doing the social media to invite people to come see your art, that aren't necessarily the most, that are separate from your art making. I mean, they're different aspects, they are of a different aspect, but, you as a human being, they're all integrated within you. And so don't devalue them just because it's, it's a left brain activity versus a right brain activity.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do that. I see a lot of artists will not embrace it the way that you're talking about, or clearly the way that Tommy Darger has, of that sort of left brain type stuff. It's like they just want to be right brain, and they just want to be creative, but then there's the aspect of, well, who's going to take care of getting your stuff out there, or creating an audience for your work.
Right.
And a lot of that becomes sort of left brain activity.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great way to see it. And depends on how you're wired. You're like for me, I did IT work for a long time. I'm very methodical, and I get in my left brain a lot, and that's where it's a little bit tempting for me to stay there. Like I said, I'll check my email, then I'll start organizing, and then I'll start, checking off things like that. And I had intended to maybe spend the day working on music. And so it's that, I think that's part of the the magic there, that really there's, it's part of your personal integration, like it's almost like you said, like it's almost on a spiritual level, or like a deeper level. You are, or maybe a Buddhist idea that all this tension is just created in your mind, and you need to have faith that you're going to do what needs to be done and in this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, talking about it on that level, I mean, what Buddhism kind of teaches is for one, they teach about the middle path, right? It's like they don't go to one extreme or the other, go down the middle, right?
I love it.
It's like, don't get too bogged down with the marketing type stuff, and don't get, and you can't if you want to be making money at your art, it's like, don't just go down the creative side, because then you're neglecting, making an audience for it. So if that's what you want to do, there's a middle path, and there's, and there's a way of just sort of being gentle about it. The other part that Buddhism talks about is attachments. And this is what I think that I was sort of talking about, the people who are so, who consider themselves so like right brain or so creative that they kind of can't do this other stuff, or that they make sort of, it almost becomes like, in a sense, an excuse. It's like they get so attached to that aspect of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not very, Buddhism would not call that very, I don't want to say healthy, but I mean, that's the only word that's coming to me. Would not consider that the best way to be, is so attached to that, is to have a little bit more, to not be so grasping onto it, that if you're grasping so much to like that, I have to be creative and this is how it is, that's not the right way. It's like, have some breath with it, have some space. And if the other things that are coming up are being, going on your Twitter site, then, go on your Twitter site.
Yeah.
Then when you go down the rabbit hole, like you're saying, of, just being on social media, then that becomes a bad thing. And you kind of have to have some breath with that, and realize what your priorities are, and go back to the studio and kick out the jams.
I love it. That is so helpful. Thank you for the idea of the middle path. Like that. Yeah. That's really what I need to keep in mind and seek that. And that, that, like I said, that like, in a way that I like that, because that relates to the rock star path in a way. It's like the rock star path can be a middle path.
Absolutely.
You are, you're staying true to your authentic being and your visions and your dreams, and you're not letting all of these forests on either side, these tangles and these darkness, not distractions, whatever, all this place you're going to get lost. You might go walk into the woods a little bit here, walk over here, but generally you're going down the same path. That's really helpful, because I get tangled in things.
Yeah. I think that, when you, as you slow, it's an easy thing to say, is sort of like, go down the middle path. But the more you sort of start to live it or understand it and see yourself like, hey, I need to pull myself back to this middle path, or, it's another way of sort of saying that, or, it's sort of like fitness freaks, right? It's like, of course, being fit and exercising is healthy, but people who become obsessed with it, and, or, they can only relate to, they only want to be in a relationship with somebody who's obsessed with it. That's getting too attached, and you're not going down the middle path, where it's like, also have some breath with yourself, give yourself a break.
I love it.
Be more chill. And be healthy, but eat ice cream once in a while. Do you know what I mean? It's life. Enjoy it. But you can't indulge in that, or that's not. If you eat too much ice cream, that's not healthy.
Watch some Mystery Science Theater 3000. Is that what it is?
I mean, exactly. Watch YouTube videos of kids playing Minecraft.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, it's like, you don't want to do that all the time, or, but just like, don't beat yourself up, yourself up over it. Maybe that's what you needed at that time.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, don't, like you said earlier, gently get back on the path, and don't beat yourself up over it. That's kind of what I was getting into. I'm kind of beating myself up for not spending enough time creating music and this kind of thing, when really, things are progressing. They're progressing gently, and and they're moving in the right direction. And there are lots of things that I am involved in and want to do. I mean, really, it comes back down to the priority and the choice. that's why I was saying about the idea of being busy. It's like you're doing what you're choosing to do, and what you're on based on decisions you chose because you wanted to do those anyway. So it's all within your power to not be busy, and that idea of busy is an excuse, and it's beating yourself up at the same time.
Yeah, you definitely have to make sure that you're not falling into that trap of using those things you're doing or not doing to beat yourself up for, because that's just not right, and it's not gonna get you anywhere. Though we all do it.
Yes.
I mean, that's at the same time, it's universal. I mean, I can say like, don't do it, but I do it all the time. We all do. We're human beings. So that's
right.
We're both, we're both the God and we're the devil. Do you know what I mean? We're full of these extremes. We can contain all these extremes at the same time.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. I mean, broadcasting this show is because we know that everybody does it, and we know that there are people that most everybody's getting what we're talking about, can relate to what we're talking about in various aspects of their lives, and we as we sort these things out ourselves, we know that our intention is to help other people sort things out too, and also have other people help us. So we're going to wind up this broadcast tonight. If you're watching this, wherever you are, on YouTube or on our website, rockstarpath.com, or anywhere else, leave a comment, ask us some questions. Let us know if this, what we talked about tonight, resonated with you. Right.
Please do. Yeah. We're here to learn from you and create a community and just help everyone around, all of us to taking further steps down the path.
Yep. And keep creating. It's if you feel like that's what you're here for, is to create, then make that a priority. That's my advice. That's my closing my closing idea for everybody. Make your what you were here for, make that a priority in your life.
Yep. And my closing words would be, it's like, make it a priority, and don't necessarily think if you're popular or unpopular that's a measure of the worth of what you're doing. Really stay true to your heart and don't get too swayed by the societal pressures, I guess, or popular perceptions.
Yep. Or your mommy and daddy telling you what to do. You know what you want to do, just like Hermie the elf knew he wanted to be a dentist on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, okay, great.
We've all watched that. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, in closing, my website is johnkyle.com. You can check out my art over there. And we have Rockstar Path is on Twitter at rockstarpath.com. So you can actually reach us over there as well. So
I'm going to make a note of that. I need to join.
Yeah, you do. I
need to follow that.
You'll be my first Twitter follower. I mean, our first Twitter follower.
No, I'm just kidding. I also have a Twitter feed that called dailyartquote.com that I'm starting to build an audience for. So
great.
So some of these quotes that I'm reading from Mark Rothko and others that we do in our Art and Theory segment will also be posted there.
Oh, awesome. What's it called? Is that at art? What's the Twitter handle, I guess you could say?
Daily Art Quote.
Daily Art Quote.
Yeah, at Daily Art Quote.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make Twitter a priority right after the show.
Great.
All right, Paul. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. And good night to the audience out there. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.